All right, so one of the last main concepts that we need to look at is the production of tension, of muscle tension. So first we need to look at what is known as the all or none principle. So a muscle fiber is either going to contract or it's not going to do anything at all. So it will fully contract or it will not contract at all. So there is what is known as a threshold stimulus, where the muscle fiber is being activated by a nerve fiber. And if the strength of that stimulation from the nerve fiber is high enough, then it will lead to a impulse within the muscle fiber that will go throughout the entire muscle fiber. Okay, so this is a concept that we're also going to talk about when we get to the nervous system, but I think it's important now to realize that a muscle needs to have enough stimulation from the neuron to actually contract. Okay, so one single stimulation from a neuron will cause one single contraction, which is known as a twitch. Okay, so a twitch results from a single stimulation from a neuron, which produces a single contraction. That's what a twitch is. So here in our myogram, this is essentially just our muscle fiber and what it's doing. So after the stimulation from the neuron, there's a short period of time where nothing happens. But if we get enough of a stimulation here, then the muscle fiber is actually going to contract all the way. So it will do this much of a contraction, and then it will start to relax. Okay, so the latent period is the period of time between the stimulation from the neuron and when the contraction actually starts. Then your muscle contracts all the way up here to the maximum force for the contraction. And then after this peak here, the muscle fiber starts to go back to where it was at rest. Okay, so it starts to relax. And then it will wait until the next time that it is activated. But what we're going to look at here in a moment is what happens if we're stimulated right here before our muscle fiber is fully relaxed. And if that happens, and if it happens repeatedly, we're going to have what is known as summation. So a twitch is just a single contraction of our muscle fiber. Summation is when we have several stimulations from our neuron that produce several twitches in a row. And if a twitch is not allowed to rest all the way before another twitch happens, then they are essentially going to combine. And if this one wasn't fully at rest, the next twitch is going to be stronger than that original one. Okay, and then if this one is not allowed to fully rest, then we're going to have a stronger twitch after that. So if we can get these pretty rapid together, then we're going to get a pretty forceful muscle contraction. All right, so as more force is needed, we're going to get more stimulation from the neuron. Okay, and it's not just quantity, but the frequency. So if it happens very quickly together, then there's not going to be a whole lot of rest time in between twitches, and it's just going to keep getting stronger and stronger and stronger up to a certain point. Okay, so a tetanus is when there's no relaxation between the stimuli, and that produces more force. Okay, so you will not ever really have a maximum contraction like this, a smooth tetanus. There is a disease known as tetanus that causes your muscles to contract all the way, and it's super painful. But your muscles, when you contract them, would look more like this. Okay. All right, so here we have a bunch of twitches, but they're spaced far enough apart that they don't make each other stronger. Okay, so there's contraction and then a full resting period, contraction, full resting period, and so on. But the stimulation here is much closer together, so this twitch is not allowed to fully rest. So then that next one, when we get stimulated here, is going to be a little bit stronger. Oops, sorry about that. And then the next one is not allowed to rest fully, so the next twitch is going to be even stronger. So they just build upon each other if the stimulations are frequent enough. Okay, and then this is our tetanus right here, where the stimulation is very frequent in between. Okay, now let's talk about multiple muscle fibers at the same time. So notice how we have a few different nerve fibers or neurons, okay, that are part of a nerve. All right, so a nerve is just a group of neurons. And notice how we have these axon terminals that branch off here. Well, each of these neurons is attached to a group of muscle fibers. So a neuron that's attached to a group of muscle fibers is going to form what is known as a motor unit. And the more motor units that are activated at the same time is known as recruitment. Okay. So recruitment is when multiple motor units are activated and summated and together. So for a whole muscle, this is how we get a stronger contraction to perform a, to create more force. All right. So if we have a muscle like our biceps brachii right here, and we're trying to curl really heavy weight, you're going to start off by maybe activating one, but when you realize that it's a super heavy weight, you're going to slowly activate more and more motor units until you're finally able to lift it properly. Okay, but if you activate all of your motor units and you're still not able to lift it, well, guess what? You're not going to be able to lift it. Okay. All right, so at this point, I'm sure that you are sitting, perhaps laying down, watching this video. But when you sit up or when you're standing, you have what is known as muscle tone. Even laying down, you have a certain degree of muscle tone. So your muscles, your body is never fully at rest unless you are unconscious, okay, and sleeping. And even then, there's a certain degree of contraction in certain muscles. All right. But your muscle tone just means that you have a certain amount of partial contraction in certain muscles, even when you're at rest. Okay. So you don't think about it, but your ability to just sit up in a chair or to stand, you have muscles that are going to be contracted or partially contracted to allow you to be in that position. So you have nerve impulses coming from your spinal cord, and essentially it's like a reflex. Well, okay, it's not a reflex. Sorry, that's a bad term. But these are unconscious stimulations of your muscle fibers to keep them partially contracted to allow for your posture to be a thing. Okay. So just a little bit of a comparison here between hypertrophy and atrophy. So hypertrophy is really what you want. And this is when muscles are responding to exercise and they grow bigger. If you are working out and you're lifting heavy weights and you're consuming enough protein, then you are going to experience hypertrophy. Your muscles are going to grow for sure. Okay. And there are actually a couple different types of muscle fibers. okay, which I actually kind of talked about whenever we did the turkey thing for Thanksgiving. But the slow twitch fibers, these are the ones that are going to be activated from the low intensity exercises, such as running. And these fibers are going to develop more mitochondria and capillaries to help with the aerobic respiration. All right. So the aerobic respiration is going to be used for running and swimming because you're going to have enough oxygen to supply it. So having enough oxygen that's going to come from these capillaries and it's going to be used in the mitochondria. So your slow twitch fibers are going to be really good at just continuous exercise to keep you from getting fatigued. All right. And if you are weightlifting, and that means that you're going to be developing what are known as fast twitch fibers. And these are going to be good for, short bursts of activity. So just like doing a push-up or doing a curl, generating a lot of force in a short amount of time, which is going to require a lot of ATP. Well, these fast twitch fibers are going to be good at the anaerobic respiration to supply your muscle with ATP in a short period of time while lacking oxygen. Okay. And as you're weightlifting, you're going to be breaking down the myofilaments within your muscle fibers, and your muscle fibers are going to heal and produce new myofilaments, combine new cells to your old muscle fibers as your muscles heal, and as a result, they'll grow. All right, so this is hypertrophy. As your muscles develop, they'll get bigger. Atrophy is the other way around. So if you are doing regular exercise or you're doing some degree of exercise and then you either decrease it or you stop, well, your muscles are not going to need this capacity if you're not going to be doing those activities. So as a result, your capillaries are going to shrink, your mitochondria are going to decrease if you're not using them. The actin and myosin are going to decrease, and the muscle, as a result, will shrink. So if you're not using these things to contract your muscles for these running or swimming or weightlifting exercises, then your body is going to focus its attention elsewhere and take some of these resources elsewhere. All right, in our very last slide here for chapter 8, we're going to look at different types of contractions. So you have what are known as isometric and isotonic exercises. An isometric exercise is when there is no change in muscle length. So you can think of something like maybe pushing against a wall or a table, okay? Well, like a lab table in the room. You're not going to be able to move that. Your muscles are still going to be activated, okay, because you're trying to push it. But if you're not actually pushing it, your muscles are not changing length, and that's going to be isometric exercise. You're still generating force. You're just not performing the work because you're not moving it. You could also think of this like maybe doing a plank or a bar hang. All of these are isometric exercises. Isotonic are the ones that you probably commonly think about, okay? A curl, a push-up, a bench press, a squat. All of these are types of isotonic exercises. And there are two types of movements or parts of an isotonic exercise. So there's going to be a portion of an isotonic exercise, which is known as the concentric portion. And this is what you normally think about for an exercise. So if you're doing a curl, it is when your muscle is contracting and the muscle fibers are getting shorter. So bringing that weight up, okay, and flexing your elbow, your biceps brachii is going to be shortening. So bringing this up like this, your biceps is activated and the fibers are going to be shortened. The other part of the exercise is bringing it back down. That's the eccentric portion of the exercise, and that is when the muscle fibers are lengthening. Your muscle is still activated here as you bring it back down because you're doing it in a controlled fashion. So the muscle is still contracted to a certain degree, and you're using your muscle to bring this down in a controlled motion. So this part of these exercises actually do more to grow the muscle and help you to get stronger than the concentric portion of the exercise does. Little fun fact of information there. Okay. So that's an example, a pull-up. All right. So imagine you're pulling yourself up to the bar. That is the concentric part of the exercise for like your back or your biceps. The eccentric part is going to be lowering yourself back down. So if you want to focus on the eccentric part of the exercise, then lowering yourself down in a controlled way, taking your time and releasing yourself over a longer period of time, that's going to make this more valuable and it's going to mean more to your workout. Okay. I highly recommend it. All right. So this is the end of our PowerPoint for chapter 8, all of the miscellaneous stuff. So I hope that you found this helpful, and we will talk a little bit more about this in the coming days.